With pitchers and catchers set to report right around the corner, the news continues to be eerily slow surrounding this Philadelphia Phillies team. However, the New York Mets continue to make headlines with Pete Alonso officially returning to the organization. I want to break down exactly what this means from both the Phillies and Mets perspective and why looking around the NL East right now, getting a little bit nervous surrounding this Phillies team. But let's jump right into things. And you want to start with the initial report from MLB.com directly. It was Jeff Passan that had it first, but the MLB tweets Mets first baseman Pete Alonso reportedly agrees to a 2-year deal with an opt-out after 2025. And to add a little more context to this, we have on this day that Pete Alonso signs a 2-year, $54 million contract to remain with the Mets. He obviously was drafted by New York in 2016. Alonso is a former Rookie of the Year and a 4-time All-Star. He currently ranks third in franchise history with 225 home runs. So kind of a bit of a surprise just in the context of how we got here. Obviously, Alonso has been basically a staple of that Mets organization since he was called up to the majors and able to make his impact. A guy to lay into the numbers specifically for last season. Produced 34 home runs and 88 RBIs across just 608 at-bats there. 146 hits, 172 strikeouts. He's 30 years old. He's a guy who we clearly remember from the playoff battle with this Mets team and a guy who came up with some pretty timely hits for the Mets there. So I think Mets fans are rejoicing. I've certainly gotten a couple texts myself. I'm kind of shocked this is happening just based on some of the comments from the ownership and general manager that they recently met and were pretty open about the conversation, saying they weren't comfortable with the talking points and how negotiations were going. Even comparing it to Juan Soto, how that was a more difficult kind of conversation and how the negotiations were going, and really just not liking how things were happening. But nonetheless, Alonso will be in a Mets uniform, and to take a look at potentially what their lineup will look like next year, to want to pull this up here and to go full screen on it, we have Lindor batting leadoff, Juan Soto, the new addition, batting second, Pete Alonso, kind of his coverage in the lineup there, the proper shield for him to make sure you're pitching to Juan Soto. And then you can continue down. Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos, Jesse Winker, who if Jesse Winker was not in a Mets uniform, I would absolutely love him. He is going to be one of these guys that I just grow to hate more and more as this continues here. And of course, Francisco Alvarez there, Jeff McNeil, and then Jose Siri that they kind of have as sort of the projection here. So obviously, this just being a projection, there are still things that can change, but that is a pretty scary looking lineup. And to factor in a team like the Braves, who obviously had a nightmare season with injuries next year, they're going to be back and ready to roll. And then to take a look at our very own Philadelphia Phillies, while this is still a very solid lineup by MLB standards, I do struggle to see how this improves moving forward. And shout out to Isco_5 for tweeting this out. His projected Phillies lineup of today, which I do think is fairly accurate here: Schwarber at 1, Trey Turner at 2, Bryce Harper at 3, Nick Castellanos at 4, Alec Boehm at 5, JT Realmuto in the 6th spot, Bryson Stott batting 7th, Brandon Marsh batting 8, and Max Kepler batting 9. It is going to be interesting if they do fiddle with this and play around, experiment a little bit more this season. We've heard a couple comments from Rob Thomson directly about that being a possibility. I would not mind experimenting with seeing if there is a little bit more of a spark, putting Trey Turner in that leadoff spot, or if you do want to try Bryson Stott in there. I know I've talked about this with Luke Arcaney here on the channel, that's something that really appeals to him. I don't quite feel that way with Stott specifically. He's not exactly what I picture in a leadoff hitter, and frankly, I'm still a guy that sits pretty comfortable with Kyle Schwarber being the dude. I do stand by the stance that there is nothing better than starting off a game leading 1-0 with that first hitter at the plate there, and Schwarber does that at a better rate than really anyone in MLB history there, just about. So it will be interesting to see the decisions that they do make, but it is frustrating that the story of this offseason has kind of been other teams getting better and the Phillies staying the same. Now, this is not to say that they have done nothing, and the one notion that I do want to squash is this is not some organization that is disinterested in spending money. And to lay that out exactly, did want to discuss the payroll and where they rank across the MLB, because I do think that does get twisted at times. And shout out to Phillies Tailgate, who does an awesome job tweeting us, keeping us up to loop with this Phillies team. And they've been all over it in the offseason, getting creative with some of the things they're tweeting out to at least continue making content. Very appreciative of that. And he tweets out Phillies payroll commitments per year and where that ranks in the MLB. In 2025, $308 million, which is second in the MLB. 2026 would be $163 million, which is third right there. 2027, $128 million still on the books, which is fifth. And 2028, $89 million, which would rank 7th there. Now, obviously, this is without full rosters and this sort of projecting ahead. So the players that are currently on the books right now. I think what is also a fair assessment based on how this Phillies team and how this offseason went specifically is this a bit of a retool year, that I think they're allowing some contracts to expire, having the guys have these, contract years that you got to deliver and earn your money there, and then really shape things. That there weren't these opportunities to fully expand your roster and improve in the necessary way, that it was believed to have to move and shake the way that would have been necessary necessary. Sure, there was the Juan Soto pipe dreams that were out there, but it was pretty clear from the beginning of the process that the Phillies just were not in that same mix or willing to spend that level of capital. And again, this is not them being shy about spending money. To give another example of that directly here, just take a look at the luxury tax payments that we've had since 2019, according to Fangraphs here, that in 2019, that's $193 million in the luxury tax payroll. 2020, 208, then 206 in 2021, 246 in 2022, 262 in 2023, 263 in 2024, and then $307 million just like last year with the luxury tax payroll. So again, I'm not going to read into this or harp on the, economic side of things too deeply in this specific video there, but do just want to make it clear that this is not an organization operating with slim pockets or penny pinching by any means here. Just the reality is they got to find a way to get better, and maybe there have been some choices that haven't gone exactly as planned right away. Maybe he can get to another level this year, but I do think if we're ultimately to search for what is the reason this team can't get over to the edge, I have a sneaking suspicion that Trey Turner is going to be a larger part of the conversation than a lot of us want to admit. Now, for Trey Turner specifically, he's a good baseball player. Don't get that twisted there. I don't want to come at him directly, but what I don't quite see him as is a guy that could be the top tier elite caliber player that he is signed to be, that contract dictates him to be. And I don't think he's the co-star to Bryce Harper that is necessarily designed to be the case there. So how can this organization improve? They're going to need to see some leaps from people. And another thing that we did see is them kind of leaning on the pitching stance side of things. I'm not the Jesus Luzardo guy that I think some of these people are, or some people are really hyping him up. But there is a belief that he could become the next real deal part of this rotation, or a player that is a huge part moving forward. So if Luzardo can deliver that, obviously there is Andrew Painter coming up, a couple other guys that could obviously earn a role or find a key place in this roster. But the reality is I think that is what the organization is banking on. It's internal growth rather than bringing in somebody from outside to bring something to this team and add a flavor there. Maybe Max Kepler exceeds expectations. Maybe there is something like that this team obviously, comes above expectation there. But I just don't have that kind of vibe right now. I think they are banking on being a very good baseball team and hoping they can get hot at the right time. That's not the direction that a lot of other organizations are taking, and we're seeing them sort of lap them in the offseason. With that being said, you can't sign Bryce Harper out of nowhere. You can't sign Kyle Schwarber out of nowhere. You can't sign Nick Castellanos out of nowhere. And these are all players fully on this Phillies roster already. So they are not going to be a bad baseball team by any means, but it is getting stiffer and stiffer as far as competition looking around the league. And this Phillies team kind of sitting on their hands and seeing what they can make happen, running it back one more time. So let me know what you guys think in the comments there. Did the Pete Alonso signing change your perspective whatsoever from the Mets perspective? Them obviously bringing him in, bringing him back, and him being a key part of that. I certainly was looking forward to him leaving the NL East and hoping he went far away from here. That is not going to be the case. But nonetheless, this team does have to buckle up, keep battling, and that's exactly what I expect them to do. So I do want to hear from you guys on what your outlook is from Alonso. Does this change anything at all from this perspective? Going to keep powering through this offseason and do hope we have some news breaking soon. As I mentioned, pitchers and catchers right around the corner. So hopefully I'm excited to get some quotes from spring training coming out and break all that down as well. And want each and every one of you guys rocking with me. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video here, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.